members in Freedom from Covert Surveillance and Harassment. There's a handful of other organizations that have an equal number of membership. If this is delusional disorder, then they've all come together in organizations voicing the same delusion. And to me, that just statistically tells me that there's something else going on besides mental illness. The directed energy weapons, and when I say directed energy, we're talking about, as it was explained to me by a CIA agent, we're talking about particle beam, ultrasound, microwave, and laser. There are some things you can do to shield from that, mylar, copper screening, there's various things you can do, and a lot of that's online. However, the audio harassment, from what I've seen, there's two forms of it. There's voice to skull, which is the microwave hearing effect, or the fray effect, which is communications being beamed directly into the head via microwave. And that doesn't work through bone or air conduction in the normal auditory system. It works by thermoelastic, thermovestibular expansion. The microwave heats up the workings of the inner ear, you might say, and causes a waveform to go through that you perceive as sound. Now, the other way that people hear the audio harassment is not in the head, but in things that vibrate around them, and that's elf wave audio harassment, where basically they blanket your home with extremely low frequency wave. Anything that vibrates, running water, ceiling fans, aquariums, anything with the slightest bit of vibration will finish amplifying that sound in a frequency that's usually specific for the targeted individual to hear. And those people will tell you that, well, it seems like they follow me all around my house, and I hear them in every room I go to. Well, that's because the whole house is blanketed with it. Every room you go to, there's going to be something there that will carry sound.
Amazing. How many people are we talking about here? How many victims? I know what this is an estimate, for sure.
Well, I've easily probably not talked to personally, but either had emails or heard stories of several thousand in the United States and thousands more globally. So it's a fairly large problem, and that's why I was saying that for each one of these victims to see a psychiatrist in their hometown and be diagnosed as delusional disorder, when the whole syndrome only has a 0.03% in the population, is just not feasible. The people that are being harassed, the voices are directed completely to you. They're talking about where you're at and your location of a room. They're using their names back and forth with each other in conversation when they're not watching you. Well, in talking to the FBI and the CIA people that I know, and some Army and Air Force intelligence people, who presented this as a lot of it being satellite-based. A lot of the people in Texas especially, we live in big areas in Texas, and a lot of the victims I've spoken with are on, 5, 10, 100 acres. They don't have neighbors directly around them. There's nobody out their window or shooting anything at them through the wall. So that's one of the reasons that I basically went with what I was told by intelligence people, that yes, we do currently have the technology to do this to you via satellite. One of the other theories is HARP, and I know you've had Nick Beckett.
Hone in, John, on the individual. How do they find that person?
That's another area that we're doing some research on. Most people that experience this assume that they have a chip in them. We have scanned people, and I have found chips in people. I have several MRIs at my office that people have sent me that indeed there is something that looks like a very chip type chip in them. Some people are thinking it may be nanotechnology that's used to do the tracking. A lot of the research is pointing toward EEG recognition. Each person has a different EEG fingerprint, or brain fingerprint, if you will. And by remotely detecting that EEG, you can actually pick George Norrie out of a crowd of 1,000 based on his EEG.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Tell me about the Freedom from Covert Harassment Surveillance Group.
The human rights organization, and I strongly suggest anybody that's experienced anything like this, if you feel like you're being attacked with directed energy, some of the symptoms are, severe headache that you can tell is coming from the outside, burning, twitching, involuntary muscle movement, burning of the eyes, clicking of the jaw joints or the TMJ joints, along with stalking and hearing audio harassment. This is an organization that they really need to get in touch with. We're doing some research, and we're organized. We have a medical committee. There's myself and another physician who I Noah's going to be probably calling in Dr. Terry Robertson. We're going to be doing some studies through this organization that includes a very in-depth survey on exactly what is happening to these people, along with some urine testing for different neurotransmitter levels, to try to get a congressional hearing similar to the Rockefeller Commission to bring an end to this. Virtually every one of these people that come forward with this is having a form of stalking, and they do have evidence that their home's getting broken into and that they're being followed around. What we suggest to people is carry a digital camera around with you. If you're being followed by the same person all the time, take a picture. That way you have some proof, because that may be the one little item that you have to keep you out of psychiatric treatment that you don't need. And virtually every one of these victims is experiencing on-the-ground stalking along with the rest of the attack.
It's got to be some kind of a test of some sort, some kind of experiment, some kind of research that they're doing, or they could probably, get volunteers, don't you think?
Yeah, well, the problem with doing this with volunteers, like they said, if it's research into seeing, how far you can take someone before you break them psychiatrically, you're not going to be able to do that on volunteers. If someone knows if they know exactly where the voices are coming from and know exactly where the weapons are coming from when you start, that's really not going to put the fear and put them under the stress that you would be looking for to test if you're looking to break somebody. The other thing that leads us back to possibly experimentation, and probably experimentation, is if you look back through time, and all of our torture techniques depend on deprivation, sleep deprivation, social deprivation. It almost seems like this is geared to make the person appear delusional, get them discredited, get them to lose their job. Well, then they're sitting at home by themselves and strictly a guinea pig at that point. You're not having to track them. You're not having to stalk them, follow them around. You basically, have a rat in a jar.
John, is this being done through government, or is this being done through the shadow government?
I think it's probably the shadow government, or what they call agency sterile operations, because we did identify who is accessing this technology in San Antonio, and these people all worked for the government in one form or fashion in the past, at least the leaders of it. Now, the people doing the stalking are often just criminals, kind of low-end societal people that they find that are more than willing to do their break-ins for a price. But the other things that we've actually seen in a lot of the victims is the low technology. If this is done in an incident where it's mostly sexual assault of a woman, not only do you get the satellite imaging, the X-ray imaging, which allows for anatomically correct attacks, because they're seeing an X-ray image, so they know that they're attacking your face, or they're attacking your genitals, or they're attacking, your eyes. But they're seeing an X-ray image. So if they're actually trying to video any type of sexual assault, they're going to need to break in and put, regular cameras in. And that's also what we're seeing. There was several victims here in San Antonio that had people sitting outside their homes in addition to the advanced technologic attacks. And the people sitting outside their homes all night long were actually there, obviously, with receivers, because some of these people actually found cameras hidden in their hollow doors. One particular girl found an RF camera that had been intricately wired into a hollow door in her bedroom closet, glued in, and then the pieces of wood on the veneer of the door were carefully glued back around where the lens was in the center of the knothole.
Sounds like a sick.
But the other side of that might be that the government may not want to admit to this technology for the social reasons. And if you think about this, what's in our head and in our mind is really your last bastion of privacy. And for the government to come out and admit that we now can decode your EEG and hear your thoughts, the social ramifications of that. I mean, the religious changes, people realizing that when they're in church and they're sitting in prayer, that it's maybe not God that's hearing, but it's the government that's hearing. That they can see you indoors, your most private acts. And I mean, there